We're here at the Branch one-room schoolhouse with George Eister, Fred Campbell, Tom Johnson, and Jane Johnson. So, first of all, tell us where we're sitting.
We're sitting in the front row of the school, desks that have been accumulated over several years from various sources.
And the Branch schoolhouse dates till how old do we think?
This building, 1863, I believe. But, you know, an interesting thing is that nobody knows, and we've never found why it's called the Branch School. Usually, schools were named after the people who gave the land for the school, and the Meads gave the land for this school. But why it was named Branch, we've never been able to find.
Okay. Now, we've also heard that this is not the first Branch schoolhouse, this is the second one. So where do we think the first one was constructed?
Well, it's 6/10 of a mile to the west on the same side. It was a log school. Log schools were primitive, and they had dirt floors, one big fireplace at the end to heat, and the windows were crude. The students sat along the wall with the 2x8 or 2x12 sticking out from the wall as their desks. And after 12 years, it was decided to move here, and this building was built by the Abner Construction Company for about $463.
And we believe that was in 1863?
I believe that's the correct date.
Okay. And one of the most interesting local lores is a possible connection to the Underground Railroad. What do we know about that, or what do we think we know about that?
Very little. That's right. It's rumored that this was part of the Underground Railroad, and there is a home in the township just short ways from here that has a secret room in the basement that they felt was part of the Underground Railroad. But we've never found any proof of this being. And we've searched down there for any artifacts or things that were left. And it's got a very deep crawl space. So.
Okay. And the situation with this being in 1863 obviously was during the Civil War, which ended in 1865. Also, this wasn't always called the Branch School. It was District 4 school, but also this area was known as Little Africa or Africa. Can you one of you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Well, the people living around here were termed rabid anti-slavery abolitionists, and that's why this area got the name Africa. And in fact, the name Africa was in the Michigan State University Extension Service. They called this Africa. The Williamstown Enterprise, the newspaper in town, has a gossip column for every area, and this was Africa. So it was a name that was given to it, and it stuck until about the Second World War.
In the pioneer history of Ingham County, she talks about this as Africa.
As Africa, that's
okay.
right.
All right, so those are some more clues that this was probably a hotbed of abolitionism during the Civil War, and people would have been sympathetic to helping the enslaved people get out and either to Detroit or to Canada.
I've heard that the Red Cedar River was also followed to get up to Canada.
Okay, all right. So let's fast forward about 100 years, or not quite that much, to refurbishing this schoolhouse. When did it start? Whose idea was it? And how did that all come to pass?
Just before that, it was Township Hall. In fact, I voted in here in the 1970s. And the last time, the first time I went to the township meeting was in this building.
And we think that was in 1970?
In the early 1970s.
I believe the new Township Hall was opened in 1974 on Germany and Zimmer, so. Okay, very good. So,
So this building was deserted for a number of years. Well, after the township left, two teachers from Williamstown wanted to use it, and they built very modern out of plywood, but beautiful furniture for their kids. And they came out here to have a day in the one-room schoolhouse. My granddaughter lived in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and had to come here when they had the floods out there and the fire. And she went to school here for one day because she continued going to school. And
She's never forgotten it.
Yeah, she's never forgotten it. That's right.
and I think that was in the late 80s, early 90s.
It was in the 90s.
Okay. So then, how long had it been kind of vacant before it was discovered that this needed some TLC and you people were going to do it?
Well, Mickey Martin really deserves the credit for driving it. She went to a one-room schoolhouse, so she had an interest, and she established a history committee and assigned the first job was to rehab the school. And so we got together. We called ourselves the Jack Leg Construction Company, and jack leg is an archaic word for incompetent. And but we worked very well, and these two guys were just unbelievable what they did.
Well, Mickey also got the township board to allocate $25,000 for the project.
And what did the project entail? I'm guessing electrical work, plumbing work, and just floors and everything.
Yes.
Floors outside needed to be painted, the roof needed to be painted, the cupola needed to be rebuilt.
The ceiling.
The ceiling.
They had a false ceiling in it, and when it came down, it was relatively dirty. And then somebody had to get up there and sand the whole ceiling without wearing a mask. Of course, the lead paint, but I don't think he suffered any consequences. Do you, George?
And
all the furniture, none of this was in here. This is all new stuff.
New old
it's
stuff.
Not new. It's stuff that we found. And Fred finished all these desks.
the first 25 desks that we got came from out west of Lansing. And the guy wouldn't sell us some. We had to take them all. So I spent a winter when I took all those 25 desks apart, sanded down all the metal parts, primed them, painted them, put them back together, and oiled all the wood. The other thing was that the back room, which is storage and restrooms, had to be rebuilt completely. And we had professionals who did the outside structure, and then we finished it all off.
Okay. And then what year is this interior supposed to be like right now?
1922. We have a calendar on the wall from that year.
None of the books in the library are after that. They're all before 1922. The Globe is 1922 or before.
The bane of my existence was Tom Johnson in ensuring us that we didn't do anything past 1922. Meaning I couldn't put any Phillips head screws in anything because they didn't have Phillips head screws at that.
Yeah, they came in 1937, George. You should have known that.
So everything was done to make this a period feeling room. So when you walked in, there's not a air conditioning unit, there's not a drop ceiling, there isn't,
The only thing are the heating units on the wall, on the floor. The other thing is that we discovered that wire coat hangers were invented in 1922. So you'll notice in the coat room that they're wire coat hangers because they're also in period.
Okay.
And of course the lighting, Tom came up with a scheme to make it look like the ancient lighting.
Yeah, Colin Dubin
tube?
Yeah, something to wiring. And but the most striking thing is when we walked in the door, the skunk smell was unbelievable because 2 skunks had gotten in the crawl space and had gone over and fallen into the well pit and died. And it took about a year and a half or 2 years
More than that.
for that to disappear.
Okay, well, that's good they did. So when you talk to students that went to the branch school, what do they say about what it looks like inside now?
They're impressed. They're impressed. And the stove was in the middle of the school, which kind of amazes me, but that's where they said it was. The awful to sit next to it, but that's where it was.
The other thing they told us is that the boys' outhouse needed to be so that the teacher could see it from her desk.
And that's the only thing that isn't really true, because the boys' outhouse was out by the road. And that way she or he could keep their eyes on the boys and no shenanigans.
The girls' outhouse is on the other side, and they were both done by Eagle Scouts from the local troop.
Mm-hmm. And those Eagle Scouts were?
Ian Campbell was the supervisor of the boys, and I'm blocking on the name of the...
Yeah, I am too.
Okay, all right. So now that you look here, and we've had open houses here for the community, our German exchange students come here every year, there have been other things going on in here. How do you feel about your work? Because this is about 10 years ago that it was refurbished and done. How do you feel? How do you reflect back on that?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm really disappointed that the Williamstown schools haven't come out here for a day in the one-room schoolhouse. And we've suggested it, but it seems the hang-up is always the cost of having the bus come and, haul them out here and stuff. That's the excuse we've gotten, but that's the only really disappointing thing. Otherwise, when we have an open house, people are really interested in this school. Yeah, I'll mention that I went to a one-room schoolhouse just for a couple of years, and it was a wonderful experience. Just say that.
The students that come in are always impressed by the flag, which is 48 stars.
And we've got some presidential photos and one general photo. What's the background on some of the photos that we have framed?
When I went up into the attic to begin to figure out what was going on up there, I found Teddy Roosevelt, Washington, and Pershing pictures up there. And then Frances Schaffert gave us the Lincoln, having discovered it behind a mirror in her house as she was moving. And the other thing that the kids now are quite impressed with are the cursive writing instructions and examples that are here in the room. Generally, I'm very pleased with the way it all turned out.
When we had the dedication, several of the local people, the elderly, that had gone to school here, came here, some in dress appropriate for the age.
And they were quite pleased and probably startled that they were able to go back decades in their mind and look at where they had got their K through 6 or K through 8 schooling. Okay. Is there anything else I need to add or you want to add in?
Well, you need to note that we have a map case that is appropriate in age, and there is a complete set of Montgomery readers here, and that we have inkwells and dip pins for all the desks. And there is a display over here of the history of inkwells going from metal to glass through plastic. So that the curriculum material we also have as appropriate.
We have one inkwell that's appropriate. It's a wide-mouthed inkwell, so that if a girl was sitting in front, on one of these desks, you could take her braids and stick them in the inkwell. but we only have.
Tom, only you would do that.
No. We only have one of those. But then we required a really rare and interesting thing, and you can't see, maybe you can't see it from here, but back in the corner, we have a case of a complete curriculum from 1882 of McGuffey's complete curriculum. And we don't want anybody to open it up and look at it because it is fragile. So we're going to have a person take pictures of everything and then make a booklet of that. And that'll protect it. And then we'll sort of seal it up. Not seal it up, but put something on it so people just can't. We had an for an open house, a big sign, do not touch, fragile, 1882. Here's a lady singing, flipping through it, and one fell out. So that's the way life is.
One thing that you should note is that after the school was restored, the Michigan One-Room Schoolhouse Association gave it an award as the Schoolhouse of the Year. So there's a plaque.
Yeah, that plaque out front. And we're going to, this school was saved by a woman who lived across the street. She was, Lorena Martin was her name, and when they closed and moved the township, she offered to buy it, but the price wasn't high enough, and the supervisor at that time felt it had no historic value and was going to sell it. And she single-handedly formed an organization known as Friends of Williamstown Historic, or what's the name of that?
Friends of Williamstown Township.
Yeah, Friends of Williamstown Township. And they really went to town, and they're the ones that really saved it. An interesting note is Wanda had it surveyed and found out that the survey went right through that rear window. I mean, we didn't have the property in back, and thank God she got the township to buy the land in back, so now we own the whole acre.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you very much, George and Fred and Tom and Jane, for your efforts kind of talking about where this building stands today and kind of how it got here. And it dates back to the Civil War. Pretty cool that we would have this on Sherwood Road in Williamstown Township.